Okay. It looks like we're still waiting on Elliot. Hopefully he will be here shortly, but I will just get us started since we have quite a bit to do tonight. So let me just make sure our secretary's on. Katie, are you there? Are you still?
I am.
Okay,
I
just
am.
checking.
Just situating myself.
Nope, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure our secretary is there. Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 7:02. And need to say that this meeting is being recorded. So please know that anything you share on your screen may be captured in or will be captured in that recording. Also, any vote taken tonight will be done by a roll call vote. And I need to make sure that all members in the committee are present and can participate remotely. So when I call your name, please answer in the affirmative. Ken?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Danielle?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Jillian? Nope, I saw you go off mute for a second, but I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, yep, I heard you, great. All right. So hold on, let me just get, hopefully Elliot will join us. So we need to get through some more voting on ATM articles and hopefully get some comments approved as well. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in and share our comment document that we've been working on here. Can everyone see that? Make it a little bigger. All right, so I went ahead and I highlighted in red ones that have either changed or we haven't gone through yet. I did write the town general fund budget article. We have voted on this already, but this is the comments that I had drafted. So I wanted to share them and see if there were any feedback, comments, corrections on these.
Sorry, specifically on the general budget comment?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go one by one.
Alana, when it says that it's in line with prior town budgets, what's the intent to convey there?
That's about the breakdown. This is how we normally, so maybe that's a little confusing.
I would read that as like things are normally going to these particular departments, maybe. I mean, not to reword it, but that's how I read that. Like things
okay.
always
Well,
go in these
that
ways.
would be correct then. Yes,
Okay.
This is how we normally break down the budget for town meeting appropriation.
So the reason I ask is I'm used to seeing that in terms of a reference to the financial dollars,
Okay.
which I think is not
Right. No, I see what you're saying.
really
Yep.
what we're saying, but I
Right.
don't,
Right.
it just feels unclear that if others interpret it the same way. Because I get what you're saying.
Right.
We're breaking things down the same way.
Right.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if you meant it this way, Alana. I would have read that as, historically we look at the budget and as we've done projections, and I can't do what the exact percents are, but
Right.
say, it's 12% to public safety. It's
Right.
60% to education. It's, 10% to general government or DPW, whatever the percents are. I would have read that as where, you know, we haven't made any dramatic changes in the allocation of money
Mhm.
between, you know, it's not like we're substantially cutting the police department or the
Right.
school department, although that's a.
But if we feel it is a little misleading, we can certainly change the wording of it.
I think it's ambiguous rather than
Okay.
misleading, in my opinion.
Right.
Oh.
Shows, okay.
I'm not sure I like the sentence about FinCom acknowledges that there are items or requested by multiple departments.
Okay. That was, right, that was to say that I know, you know, the school department
Yeah, but
was requesting more money and
making it general, you downplay what I think is, you know, based on historical numbers, an under allocation of the school department. I don't think it's fair to say everybody took a hit for stuff they don't want. I know there's a long list from DPW, but they're getting
there's
money.
also the fire department wanted an assistant deputy.
Yeah,
That's not
big
a lot,
deal.
you know.
They're never going to get that. That's nuts.
Okay. Well, okay, but I don't think it's
So,
but I don't think it's
Peter,
balanced to say,
let's be constructive on this and suggest alternative wording or additional wording that you're thinking that ought to go in there. I
Yeah.
agree with the spirit of what what you're suggesting, but I think at this point it might be best to add wording and provide sort of a specific suggestion.
My suggestion would be,
Mhm.
The budget funds the school system at a substantially lower increase, because to be fair, it is definitely an increase, than we've done in the past,
okay,
or, you know, something along those lines. And, you know, again, I'm not the one who dictates these things, so I'm one person, so I don't mean that you have to start typing just as I'm saying it, but.
No,
so-
so I would agree. I'd even go farther and suggest that, we put in a specific, if the committee as a whole feel that it's appropriate, put in a specific, difference or delta there and say, this budget funds the school department at a lower increase, 2 point whatever it was, than in years past, or lower than what was requested, or again, whatever. Like Peter, I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm just one member, but I do agree with Peter that more should be put in there.
okay, lower percentage increase, not, but also the, okay, I guess we could say lower percentage increase. I can look up what it actually ended up being. It's like 2.1 or something. I'll go look.
If you're gonna put in what it is this year, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Past
Right.
years, about 4% or the average was.
Average or just the last two or something. I'll go, yeah,
Where,
go look those up. Oops. All right.
all right, can I just ask, because I'm
Mhm.
going to do some numbers, would people agree with saying if you averaged the last, what am I doing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. If we just take the percentage increase for each year and take an average of the 8 years, is that a valid number?
Sure,
And we're not just
Am I-
taking into account COVID years.
that's a good point.
I know it's FY16 through FY22.
Peter, are there any outliers in that? Are there any that are like abnormal?
There are, yes.
FY21.
One year it was like
FY21
almost
was
9%.
2.75%.
Okay.
So the numbers going forward from FY16 on are 4.2, 3.75, 4.0, 6.45, 5.07, 2.75. That was the year I think we cut it in the fall, and then last year 5.54.
And what did the average come out to be?
Sorry, I haven't done that yet.
Oh, it's okay.
4, 5, 6,
It,
7.
it sounds reasonable to me.
I mean, you could even put a table in there if you think it's important and then show the average.
I would. So yeah, I mean the average we get to is 4.54%, which I mean is in line with what Greg had proposed in the fall. That
Right.
we average about 4.5% on the schools. So I do think there is something to be said that generally we've averaged 4.5% on the schools, and this year what are we getting to 2.5?
I mean, at some point though, we're going to be constrained by our budget too. Like it can't grow by 4.5% every year if the budget in total increases by 2.5%.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that except, I mean, I think the schools would stand up and say, 4.5% isn't adequate, and they're, cutting like crazy to live within that.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
Yeah.
I'm just saying at some point we're going to hit a ceiling where like it can't increase by 4.5% every single year unless something changes.
Unless
'Cause
we
I
have,
mean, budget overall,
revenue
unless
growth and.
I'm thinking of bad math, but
But some of it's revenue growth, some of it's growth in state aid. New growth in local receipts and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you may be right. It's 60% of the budget that's growing that fast. So
Right, that's another point. That we might not solve tonight, unfortunately, but do we feel like this, and I'll get the right number for that one. Is the rest of this comment in line?
sorry.
I for one, I'm fine with this.
I think
Actually,
it sounds
yeah,
good too, Alana.
All right,
I like that addition.
okay, excellent. Now, all right, the community, the CPA articles have had some,
can I just, do we want to put anything in there about how like, growing the school by 4.5% every single year when it's 60% of the budget is like, we're going to hit a ceiling at some point? Like, I feel like that nevertheless sentence, we voted to recommend it. Like, I feel like we need a
okay,
why.
I agree with Jill.
Like,
hmm
if we're going to call out the school specifically, like, why did we still approve it?
okay,
But I think
Um,
it's not the long-term. I mean, maybe it'll turn out to be the long-term thing, but I think there are particular issues in this year's budget, and I need to go back to look a little closer. But I mean, the increase in out-of-district and the charter school tuition, which translates into a reduction in state aid, frankly, fairly low growth in state aid compared to prior years. And I think a lot of that's a function of a shrinking school population. And then with some issues with the insurance went up, health insurance, I think, while it came down at the end, I still think is a higher increase than we've had in other years. So anyway, I'm arguing a little bit, this is a unique budget year. Although, maybe it isn't unique and this is the future for every year, but
Well, it's not
Um,
totally unique if we are saying that we average.
well, it is
I
unique
see,
if we've
okay.
averaged 4.5% and we can't do
We
that this
shift
year.
right.
because we
money
don't have the
this
money.
year. Did we shift the money this year to sort of help us do more projects? Grow. In the future, we'll get that revenue we need. Is that what happened?
You cut out in the middle there, Jillian, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
say
my
that again?
internet keeps telling me it's unstable.
Ugh.
Did we shift the money this year to DPW? So to do some like certain water projects, like to support future growth, or like how did the money get shifted at like the last minute? That's what I'm not.
I don't,
Like-
I would argue it wasn't shifted. Yes, I think there still is a 2% increase in kind of the general government town side budgets. But, as Justine or anybody would point out, we could cut all of that to zero and still not have enough money for the schools. So yes, I think I don't think we shifted money. We let them increase at their regular percentage, I think, anyway.
I think DPW got a little bit more than they had. I believe that was for roads and tree work,
That's for the
perhaps.
tree stuff, right? Yep. But even if we cut that,
Like,
that's like,
I'm just thinking of
0.2%
like,
for the schools.
Mhm.
if we have to amend the budget on the floor to do any of the citizens petitions, if in this article we say where that other 2.5% or whatever went, or if the budget didn't grow as much as we thought,
Mhm.
like, I just feel like we need a little more. It's almost like it's like half a sentence, like, we recommend to do this, and then there's no, but why?
This is a little bit of a tangent, and I think we need to do more research, but if the citizens petitions pass, I'm not sure we have to address it immediately at that town meeting.
Yeah, no,
I-
sorry. I did go to a meeting. I hadn't gotten there yet, but we did
Yep.
have a meeting with town council, and I can speak to that. And the answer is we do not. We do not have to, and the order at which they are presented in the warrant, the town budget will pass, and then the citizens petitions will be voted on. If they were to pass, we would then have an unbalanced budget. And that can stand until technically December 1st, I believe it is, when the tax rates are set. So we can fix it at special town meeting.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, I have more to say on that when we get to those, but yeah.
So I guess maybe my other comment is just because the average that the school gets is 4.5, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Are we advocating that it always has to be that number with this comment? Do you know what I mean?
Right. What if we said something to the effect of, then they were advocating for, and like, just to say that it was the number, it's lower than the number they asked for.
Like, would it be appropriate to put in this article that like, this is a comment we're bringing up because of the citizens petition draft control, whatever it is? Like, is that the only reason we're calling it out? Or are we calling it out because, you know, as citizens or as a committee, we feel like this is an oversight, like independent of those articles. Do you know
I
what I mean?
thought-
I feel we thought it was bigger prior to the citizens' comments.
Yeah, I was gonna agree. I mean, my sense is, I agree with Katie. My sense is that you were saying, look, you know, at some point, without regard to the citizens petition, you know, eventually you get a point where the budget's increasing by 2.5%. And eventually you get to a point where, you know, you're gonna reach the ceiling. So this is really setting aside, you know, any issue about that.
Yeah, as another point, I don't like the idea of saying the 4.5 is what the schools requested. I mean, typically the schools request, you know, more in the 8-9% range. And then we settle at the 4.5. Greg started early and said, okay, you can have the 4.5. And the school said, okay, fine, we'll live with it. I don't think that really counts as them requesting that. And then we, you know, cut it late in the process. Yeah.
Well, during the
Yeah,
process, I mean, nobody gets their total amount when Greg gave that to them in August. I mean, that he was trying to be proactive, you know, and it was what he was hoping for. And then it didn't work out that way. You know, there wasn't, to me, it was a budgeting process that we had sort of talked about trying in meetings. Like, can we sort of proactively, instead of having them just go and ask for 8 or 9, which we know we can't do, can we try to give them something to work with? And that's what he did. But then but then all the other numbers came through and whatnot, and it worked out,
Yeah.
you know, the way it did.
I mean, so in answer to Jillian's thing, yeah, I definitely would be calling this out without regard to the citizens' petitions.
Jillian, is there any particular wording that you wanted to suggest with regard to your thought there?
I think the final sentence you have, I like that. I feel like maybe that should be earlier in the paragraph. Like, I feel like you talk about the school thing in the middle, and then we just talk about how the budget process works.
So maybe these last 2 sentences we could
Yeah,
put further up.
that might be my suggestion.
Okay.
And then the
Like-
please refer to the appendix B, I think is with those sentences too, right?
Oh, you don't think that's just at the end? I could put it in the middle.
Oh, yeah, no, at the
Well,
end.
the
it's fine.
appendix B is just the detail of the budget.
Right.
I think that's right, is the last sentence.
Yeah. That's it better.
Yep.
Okay.
So I almost feel like the FinCom acknowledges sentence in the middle there. It might be something, I'm just going to freestyle and talk, but you know, FinCom acknowledges that there's always more needs than, so basically there's a budget constraints to meet every need, and that there are often difficult decisions to be made during the budget process. Particularly this budget year funds the school budget at a lower percentage than years past.
Right.
Nevertheless, FinCom voted to recommend this article because we believe that, because it will present a balanced budget, and we believe that will meet the most town needs. Most town needs. Yeah, and given the weights of the various requests from each of the town departments with the available revenue, sort of like squishing the sentences together, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay. I like that first thing you said, acknowledges there are always budget constraints.
And difficult
and-
decisions need to be made during the budgeting process.
And then you want to change this a little bit. Balanced budget, combined effort.
I almost feel like the combined effort, that whole part of the sentence, you might
That's
just
too
want to put
much.
it up further and say like,
When we talk about the budget process.
yep.
So basically like
Yeah,
in all department heads. And then that gets out of here, so it's not quite so.
Yep.
Okay. I wrote this article because it presents a balanced budget that weighs probably.
I mean, that's why we still voted to recommend it as a committee, right? We still
Right.
feel that there's merit to it, even though
Right.
we
Mhm.
find this to be a large sticking point.
Sure.
I don't know. That's just me speaking as one person, but
No, I just read through that and I really like the flow of it.
Great.
That was a good recommendation.
All right, thanks. That was good. Very helpful. Anything else? Before we move on?
well, sorry to draw
Okay.
that point out.
No. That's why we're here. All right. So now, the Community Preservation Committee changed a couple of its articles. I did send them, but I can pull them up if you would like me to. I am recommending that we strike. Well, I'm going to recommend that we revote on their draft controls because there was changes in them since we voted, and also recommending that we strike this sentence because the change in this appropriation is that they are not doing the digitization of historic records request anymore. Because it was determined that digitization isn't in itself allowed with CPA funds. What is allowed for town records is to preserve the physical record itself. And the wording and the request wasn't quite clear on whether or not, if a bulk of it was preserving the actual physical record and then what goes along with that is they quickly like scan it as they go. So that would be like a really small part of the cost. That would be all right. But really what the bulk of it has to be is preserving the physical documents themselves. And so they weren't clear about that. And also with our town clerk leaving, it was hard to get the answers and things as quickly as they needed it. So they just took that request off for their appropriations this year.
How would you preserve them without digital?
It's about like acidifying, I don't know what that word, taking the acid out of paper because
Like
that's usually,
laminating everything?
and then you put it into like, yeah, basically like sheets and
Oh.
yeah, it's a,
So,
So
so
sad
the
they had
la,
to take that out.
the last CPC meeting was actually very interesting because they had a guy there who was explaining to them the appropriate usage, and they had sent him, you know, their draft controls, and he was reviewing it. And basically what he was saying is just like Alana's saying, you can preserve the document, and that is allowed, but digitizing it creates a new thing. And so preserving is allowed, creating is not. And there's a very, other towns
I'm
have
just gonna stop
tried
for a
other towns have tried to do the same thing. And so basically it's, very specific, it's not allowed. So, so I
Can
guess
ask
what,
Ken,
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
who was the expert from, or he's not like a historical guy, like Mass Municipal or something?
No, he was from the CPC.
Okay, fine. As long as he's not like a lobbyist for the historical.
No, 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 no,
No.
it's actually.
he works for a nonprofit and he's basically a CPC guru.
So all the CPCs, they have an association that helps to inform their actions. So this is, so Stuart Saganor, who's executive director of the CPA Coalition.
There it is, CPA Coalition. I just wanted to bring up the actual new draft control before we vote on it. So it is everything else we have talked about and just removing that request. So the total appropriation is lowered.
So the appropriation for FY22 projects, sorry, the FY22 appropriation has just simply been reduced by that amount
Yes.
to take that project off.
Yes,
And they're doing the irrigation as a separate article,
yes,
the irrigation of the front field at the high school.
yes, because that's from funds from FY20.
Oh, right, that's a redefinition or something, right?
Yes,
Okay, yep,
mhm.
yep. Okay,
Yep.
right.
And they didn't propose an alternative to the preservation process at this point and funds
That's
for
it.
that.
Not at this point.
They
Okay.
had no time to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, makes sense.
But that, the money will still be there. So
Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
come back and figure that out for next year, I'm sure.
So anyway, I'll make a motion that we recommend the revised Control H.
All right, do I have a second?
I will second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, and all those in favor, Ken,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes,
Jillian,
Yes.
and Elliot.
Hey, yeah,
Good to see you.
yeah, sorry for the
Excellent.
delay.
That's
Do
all
we
right.
need, could you go down to
Mhm.
the comments? Do we need to revise our comments?
Yes, so where did I have our?
We
So,
we can do that. Oh, there
yep,
it is.
it's right here.
Okay.
Really, I think all we need to do is take out the sentence where we talked about that one, because we didn't call out every single thing that they're looking to fund. We sort of talked about the higher, the larger ones. And so I propose that we just take out the
Yeah,
sentence about
it
that.
looks, it looks fine.
Okay,
Just as one person, it looks fine. I don't know if others have.
yeah, any other thoughts? Is that,
No, fine by me.
okay. All right, so the next one, Control I. Here we go. So the other thing that this expert that they had brought in pointed out on this article is that you're actually only appropriating in this article the administrative and operating expenses, the long-term debt, principal and interest. The rest of these are
Reserves that aren't.
they're the reserves that are, we're going to collect this year, but they're not appropriated yet.
Yeah.
So that actually, that's what we just did in that previous article, was we appropriated, although it's about a year behind. But so the only change to this is that what we're saying is the appropriation for this article is 131,900, not the whole 400, because the 400 is not getting appropriated here. All that's getting appropriated here that needs to be voted on is the operating expenses,
The
the
top
principal.
three.
Yeah.
Which add up to 131,900.
Correct. Does that make sense? If there's questions, let me know. I'll
That makes sense. I get that.
okay. So that is the only change, but given that it is a change to
Yeah.
the article, I thought that we should go ahead and revote.
I'll make a motion that we recommend Control I.
Do I have a second?
Jill
I'll
will
second.
second.
Jill, we'll give it to Jill. Any further discussion?
Can we make like a request to the CBC who put this forward? Like, I think someone's gonna look at the total bolded 400 and see the appropriations 131. Like,
Yes,
should
so
should we recommend that they put like like a subtotal line or something so people know where that's coming from?
I think that's what Alana's put into the our comments.
comment.
there.
yeah, tell me.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go over the comments in a minute. Let's just finish the vote if that's, let's do that first. Okay, so roll call. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
Danielle,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Okay, so here is the comment I proposed, and it says passage of this article would appropriate 131,900 to pay for operating expenses and debt. The amounts put into their reserve funds are budgeted based on the projection of revenue collected through the CPA surcharge and then how CPA works.
Yeah,
But
and
maybe
just to Jill's point, I
Right.
think, putting in this specific amount in that second, the amounts, and then maybe in parents, the rest of that is being put into the reserve funds.
Okay.
Just makes it clear there that, to Jill's point that
Mhm. So the projected revenue, and that would be the 400,000 is the projected revenue, or should I just put it right here? Maybe that makes it clearer. And then,
I think what Jill's point is, and again, I agree, is that there's 400,000 said there, and
Mhm.
yet the appropriation is only 131,900. And so the balance of that, whatever that is being put into reserve, is being
Right.
put into reserve funds.
Okay,
not being appropriate. So.
I see. Yep.
The 400,000, yeah, the 400,000, yeah.
Uh, okay, I can say what that balance actually is too. Let me just do some math. So 268. As shown in the article. Should I put so it's 268,100 is the difference. Would that go after the balance?
Yes, I put
Yeah.
that, the balance to, whatever that amount is.
Right. Yep.
Frankly, I think you could just say the budgeted projection of $400,000, but, and I guess that's fine in there. That way they're saying it, so that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Think that clears it up. I hope so.
Jill does that
Yeah.
address
think
your
that's-
comments, Jill?
Yeah.
No, I agree. It doesn't want to be confusing that. Why? Yeah, 400,000 and we're only asking for 131. Okay. Vote on that. Draft Control J is our free cash appropriation article, which we saved some discussion on for tonight. As Elliot, I know you were had some thoughts on it, and
Yep.
did you send comments for it yet, or?
I have not, no.
Okay. All right, well, we can, I guess, just open up the discussion on this article. We'll go grab it and can share it. Did you have anything, Elliot, you wanted to start off with, some of your concerns?
No, I don't know what you guys discussed last time, so.
We didn't on this one, actually. We left it for tonight, so fair game. Feel free to start the discussion. I'm just trying to grab the actual draft control.
This is J, right, Alana, for my notes?
Yes, this is
Yes,
draft control
correct.
J.
Okay.
Which is eluding me. Well, I'm gonna grab it from here. Thank you for your patience.
Now, without looking at it, I'll start conversation. What was the original concern about this article again?
There's a good amount of money to be appropriated in free cash this year. And
Right.
so I think it was just, thoughts on,
I think my main concern was that it was the pension benefits.
Oh,
It
right. Yes.
seems like there's like this,
Mhm.
there's very big liability. And did we get clarification as to, I mean, if that's just like a liability that is, I mean, do we get any data
Mhm.
on that? I think we had
So
asked.
I sent a request to Lori and Greg concerning this topic, and we are planning on having a meeting about it in June. I think it was Lori's going to do some, do some research, and I think it was just, to go in depth on it prior to town meeting right now. Just it was a time crunch issue. But that it is in the works to have an in-depth meeting on this and what it means.
And
It's
if I remember right, it was the pensions prior, not the pensions going forward, that weren't properly funded, right? So we're okay for years going forward, just years past, we have to fund slightly extra.
yeah, that's pretty much my understanding as well. And this is a known issue. And we're certainly not alone. This is not just, Maynard not doing a great job on this. Employee benefits is something that a lot of towns have struggled with. And I guess there was thought that maybe the state is gonna, help with it, but as of yet, I don't think anything has come through. So I think basically the thought process has been, you gotta show some good faith effort. And that's pretty much what we're doing.
And
Even though it's,
we've shown more good faith effort than many other towns have, so.
yeah, this is certainly, something that gets chopped because no one wants to to deal with it.
So, I think, as is the case with many things, Ellie is correct that this is something that we need to address in the longer term.
Mhm.
I think, each of these projects, should be taken individually and collectively on their own merits.
Was there any other particular
I guess it's
items
just
on
tough
here?
in a year where there happens to be a bit of a windfall,
Mhm.
that's the maximum we can contribute is like 2% of it or whatever it is.
Mhm. I think that's certainly something we can we could put in our comments if we thought we wanted to address it there, or like I said, we're going to have a larger discussion at a further meeting.
I
So
do accept that is technically a good faith effort.
Mhm.
And I mean, what's really the difference of this for like 30 versus 130 means we'd have to take from somewhere else. So
Mhm.
it's tough that that's not the solution, but it is a
Mhm.
bit concerning.
Yeah.
I think it will be good to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I agree.
So does I'd just like to understand, I guess, what the sponsor comments are in terms of articulating the the various things here. So
Mentions Capcom being consulted.
it's not a lot of information for, this number of projects.
Mhm.
You know, in the past, not only does OPEB need to be, addressed, but then there's the the additions to capital stabilization and general stabilization funds that, it would, in an ideal world, I think, okay, so I think Greg and the select board is doing what they can with this money to address a whole range of issues. So
Mhm.
I'm not quibbling about any of these, particular ones. It's just that when somebody sits there and looks at $160,000 for dispatch communications upgrades, or $300,000 for one Summer Street reuse. I think most people don't even know what one Summer Street, is. And so there's not a lot of,
He does say that. He does.
no,
like,
he says what yes, but not what that $300,000
Right.
is.
Right.
And I actually think that there's a good, a good story on these in terms of, we have some, specific projects,
Mhm.
and we're fortunate that we've got so much in, certified free cash. And if you take a look at that, there's a lot of projects here that are, getting addressed that otherwise, so.
I think that's a good thing to talk about with regards to.
Well, quite frankly,
Free
the
cash.
sponsor, it's really for the sponsor comments. And this is one of the things that, the sponsor ought to be, putting these comments in to say, here's what these projects are. And here's the benefit. In an ideal world, we'd be sitting here saying, we're adding to X amount of dollars to capital stabilization, and, that will bring our capital stabilization to X. We're putting a certain amount into general stabilization, that brings general stabilization to X. We're putting $300,000 into one Summer Street. These are comments that the sponsor ought to be making, so that town meeting voters who are reading through this would be able to sit there and say, what's this $300,000 going towards?
Mhm. Do you think, in the absence of that being said in the sponsor comments, do you think that we should go ahead and make more detailed FinCon comments with some of the things that you're suggesting?
Yeah, but I mean, this puts on the shoulders of a volunteer committee, to understand what these projects are for, and to write this up. You've got what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17 projects. Now, somebody along the way has made a determination that these 17 projects are worth putting in. So all I'm saying is they ought to translate that assessment into that. So you're saying, well, we're at this point right now, that's not what's in the comments. Well, then they ought to put they ought to address that in the comments. They're the ones who know what these things are. I guess barring that, then they can feed the information to us and we can go in and do it. But we could go in and add it into the FinCon comments.
Yeah, at this point, for this particular town meeting, that is likely the way that the information will
Yeah, I
get
know. It's
disseminated.
just,
But for
every
going
town meeting,
forward,
every town meeting, we sit here and talk about this. And, you know, I'm not trying to be peevish about this, but
Mhm.
this is something that there's a whole bunch of good work being done by the town
Mhm.
administrator and the select board to put forward the, you know, money to support these projects. And it just seems to me it's not that hard for somebody to, you know, who's already researched and already said, these are the projects, to write something up to tell town meeting voters what these things are.
I mean, can we put that in our comments that we feel that these
That the
projects? should
sponsor
be-
comments aren't
Oh,
adequate?
Yeah. Like, or that we would like to see elaboration.
So,
Like,
so from a pragmatic purpose, you know, I don't know if they're gonna sit there and add to, you know, add to this. But I just don't think it's up to, you know, whoever it is. I guess Elliot was supposed to write this up. It's not for Elliot to research these things.
Mhm.
You know, he should be able to sit there and say something to the effect, you know, in the sponsor comments, these projects are outlined. And, you know, the finance committee has, you know, assessed them and found them to be,
Right.
the right place where we should put the money. That's what our comment should say.
Right.
So, there, and, you know, this is a classic example of good news to say to town meeting voters, and we're not
Mhm.
taking the opportunity to do that.
All right, well, so two things. One, we need to vote our recommendation on this article, and two, in terms of comments, given just, you know, limited time and lots of other ones to get to tonight, should maybe Elliot and I take a stab at them, and then I know we don't need a formal vote on them. Would it be all right to give them, or would you like them to come back to FinCom before we submit them?
The comments?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really matter to me. I guess I'd like a little bit more information, but I guess without the information, I can just type up my comments and mention that it's a little bit high level. I can
Mhm.
put that together and send it out to you guys.
I, for one, don't feel the need that the comments have to come back to the committee as a whole. So
Okay.
whatever you guys come up with.
Okay.
You know, with the idea, Elliot, though, that you're writing the comments on behalf of the committee, not just your own.
Right.
Well, that's why it would come back to the committee, because I don't know if you guys all agree with my stance.
Is it possible that we can just email them and provide feedback if needed to Alana? Is that something we can do?
It's fine
No,
with me. I
I
don't know. If we can do
think that
technically,
constitutes an
'cause we have to
issue
have
with
open
open meeting law.
Yeah.
And we don't have another meeting between now and when they need to be submitted?
No, but I mean, we do have the option. And, you know, we may have to do this anyway. So we do have certainly the option. If it doesn't get into the printed warrant, it can be given at town meeting.
Without, you know, engaging in discussion over email, which is inappropriate,
Right.
I think it would be appropriate that you could send the comments out, ask members to reply to you individually if they would like to discuss the comments at a future meeting. You know, which would then indicate some level of dissatisfaction, or that no, they don't see the need to address it at a future meeting, which would imply some level of satisfaction.
I would agree with Peter's suggestion here. We can't
That's-
deliberate the comments via email, but certainly sitting here doing a yes or, you know, a yes vote that, you know, we want to discuss them at a future meeting, I guess would be within bounds.
Okay. I'll write those up and send them over to you.
Thanks, Elliot. And do we have a motion to recommend Article 8?
I'll move to recommend Article 8.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Danielle seconds.
And
Any fur-
just for Katie's benefit, you're saying Article 8, which is Control
Oh,
J.
sorry, Control J.
Thank you. Okay.
I switched
had
over
it as
to
Control
to
J.
the draft. Thanks. Okay, any further discussion for,
Well, I think, well, I mean, I'm not really recommending this article, so. I mean, if I write something up, it's not gonna be like, I don't know.
okay, so,
I would say, I mean, you can put some degree of hesitancy in, but the charge would be to write the comments on behalf of the committee. And if the committee is voting to recommend that, the article, and you're going to vote against that
I see what
recommendation,
you're saying. Okay,
it may be difficult. I mean, maybe we should reassign the comments if you
well,
don't
I
think you
think
can write
I
them.
think I'm
but
objective enough. I can write the
yeah, I
comment,
would.
and then separately, I do vote against it, so, thank you.
yeah, absolutely. And you can certainly say in the comments that the vote to recommend was not unanimous.
Yeah, that's
'Cause
fine.
yeah, because that's completely true.
I can do that. I'm capable of doing that.
Okay. Excellent. All right, so roll call vote. We are voting to recommend Article 8. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
Elliot,
No,
and I am a yes.
So then,
Okay.
Katie, that needs to go down as a 6-1 vote.
Okay. So sorry, I'll turn my feedback on. I wouldn't just say roll call yes, Elliot, no, just roll call
No.
6 yes,
Say-
1 no.
Yeah, you can say,
Okay.
yep.
6-1 vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the vote, you should have the vote numbers in there, so.
Got it. It's our first one. All right.
Okay. Moving on. Draft Control O, the Community Preservation Fund closeout, undesignated fund balance. This article was pulled. So we will not need these comments on it. The reason it was pulled was because after speaking with the CPA person, Peter, was that his name? No, Stephen. Sorry. Stuart. Gosh, I'm totally off tonight. Stuart. He was saying that this is not necessary, that if there's undesignated funds from previous years, they're in your CPA fund for use later. And
No action is
there's no
necessary.
action needed for this because
So this is something we've been doing that is
just not necessary.
That's not necessary, not only not necessary, but not appropriate. It just automatically goes back.
Right.
So we should not see this kind of article in the future.
Right.
But does this apply just to CPA or to all the other closeouts of articles?
He was
This
only talking,
CPA.
yeah, he was only talking about CPA.
And then, I mean, no offense to the dude, and but I mean, it seems like it's a DOR question, not a CPA audit question.
Well, and that's what he said. I mean, he was talking about,
Okay.
he was telling Lori that she could talk to her DOR rep and, and
Mhm.
confirm everything. So
Okay.
this dude was pretty knowledgeable.
Sorry, it's my generic
Stuart.
term.
I was impressed.
Okay, moving on. The salary administration plan again has this article changed. They added a $200 increase to the veterans agent. So we need to revote on the salary
So I'll
administration.
make
So-
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ken.
I was gonna say, I'll
let's
make a
vote it.
motion that we recommend draft control P.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Peter, did you have something to say?
Just generally, and I guess it's for after town meeting. I feel like there's a lot of changes late.
Mm-hmm. I do
And
too.
the flow of this is supposed to be, the articles get finalized, then we get an opportunity to deliberate and make our recommendations. And, if this is our last meeting before the warrant is supposed to be, voted on tomorrow night or something, with our comments, it seems like it's an unworkable process. And I don't
Yeah.
recall this being the case in prior years. I think in prior years, we had the whole, draft control letter thing, but a lot of the time we were voting on actual article numbers and it was a final warrant kind of thing. And we still had time to get stuff in. We can talk about it after this meeting,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think we should come back to it because it does seem a little goofy that, this stuff is getting changed now.
Mhm.
And, this is, what if we had a question on why the $200? Then,
Right.
we can't get our comment in the warrant? Or, suppose it was $20,000 and we
Right.
wanted to object to it.
Yeah, not in the printed warrant.
just-
No, not how tight this is. For sure.
I'm not clear what's different this year. And maybe Ken would disagree, but I think this is different than prior years.
No, I
had
actually, I agree with you. And the CPC things are clearly outside of the control of the town administrator. This is, frankly, this is a conversation that probably should have taken place a long time ago, but credit to the CPC for reaching out and having somebody review their articles and get them, get them going in the right direction. So again, credit to them for doing that. But yeah.
So anyway, that's not really on the motion. So we can talk about it later.
No, but it is noted. Yes.
Should I wait till after the vote if I have questions about the comments?
No, if you got a question about
No, go for it.
you probably ought to, if you got a question about the comments, you probably ought to talk about it now in case it makes a
Changes
difference in how
anyone's- yeah,
people, yeah,
sure.
exactly.
So the 1450, is that supposed to be 1425?
Did I miss? That might have been my fault.
I think it's the mass minimum wage. It looks like it's 1425, but I don't know if I'm looking at the most recent version.
Dang, Danielle.
What I do
Gee,
for
Like
a
it.
living, Ken.
I like it.
Wow, dang.
I like it.
Just wait for my
Att-
next comment.
Attention to detail. No, I might have missed. Let me go back. Make sure I get it right.
Yeah. The salary administration plan has it at 1425 in the draft warrant.
Okay, that was likely just my my typo then. 14. Thank you.
Good catch,
problem.
Danielle.
Good catch.
And then for my
Jeez.
super nitpicky comment on
Jeez.
the
Danielle's-
$200 is approximate. It's 2%, so it's like $202. But so, see, Ken, I told you I could get more detail.
Yeah.
All right.
Danielle's credibility meter just.
Was it was a percentage, right?
Yeah, it was at 2%, so it looks like
Okay.
it's $201.
Then I'm just gonna do that. I'm just gonna say in a 2%
Yeah.
increase.
I mean, I do think that, so the sponsor comments it might be worth putting it though, so that people don't have to do the math, because it's really small when you factor
Well, you
in
put,
that
you
they're
can put
part-time,
2% increase, approximately,
$200.
$201,
sure.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
The 2% increase is what it is, and then you just put the approximate.
Yep. I
There we
think
go.
that's good. Okay, those are my comments. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so we had a motion made and seconded. Correct?
Correct.
All right, any further discussion? Then we'll do a roll call. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
and I'm a yes as well. Excellent. So these two, Peter, I only had these highlighted because you were maybe checking with Justin and to see if there were any changes you wanted to make on these comments.
Correct. No, there are no changes. He
Okay,
confirmed what I was
confirmed.
saying, and what, including the comment about which one's bigger? The water surplus, the water reserve fund being larger because we anticipate more issues.
Okay, great.
So before we leave control,
Sure.
control S, so did the comments at the CPC meeting have no impact on draft control S?
No, I do not believe that there was any impact on that.
Because, are you going to talk about this later on your update, Alana?
Yeah, we can talk more about the CPC.
No, I'm asking
Update.
if you're going to talk more about the golf course thing in general, just for the benefit of the rest of the committee who didn't see the meeting.
Yeah, and I
We don't
think,
have to do it now.
yeah,
so-
no, I think we should. And I think that is gonna, yeah, that's
Okay.
gonna come up.
Okay.
So we can talk about that. I'll do it in my updates unless it's, 10:30 and okay. And then we'll do it the next meeting. Okay, so this is a new comment and we need to vote on this one as well.
So I'll make a motion that we recommend control V.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second it. We didn't already recommend this?
No.
No, we decided just to wait for comments and then do it together.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So thank you, Danielle, for these. I thought they were great. I think I even learned something on how this all works. So I appreciate it. I think this is a good little paragraph of education. And oh, by the way, I'm not sure if I emailed you back. Danielle had asked in an email if the $19,229.08 was the full amount of this bond premium. And Justin replied that yes, that he got that number from whomever he would need to get that from.
So I think the motion has already been made, right? And seconded.
Yeah, made by Ken, seconded by Peter. Any further discussion? All right, then we'll do roll call to recommend draft control V. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
Elliot. I heard something, but I didn't hear. Did you go too fast?
I don't think, Elliot, you're still on mute.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. And I'm a yes as well. Okay. Draft control X. So this is the citizens petition on the climate emergency declaration. I think these were based on Jillian's notes. So these are still, we're still working on some of these and we haven't yet voted. Would you like me to bring up the article itself?
Yeah, so we can vote.
Okay, hold on, let me get that. We were a little, we were still kind of discussing, maybe a little bit on, oh yes, and we had some discussion about if our recommendation could be not a recommendation, that we didn't feel comfortable giving a recommendation. I did bring this up at the meeting with our town moderator and town council discussing these, and it's perfectly within our rights to say that, to be like, our recommendation is we don't make a recommendation. I would say for me, I would like to call for a vote, but if the vote is, 2 yes, 2 no, or 3 abstain, then the answer is we did not come to consensus and we did not make we cannot make a recommendation. But we can talk about it, what you guys would like to do for this one.
All right. Contrary to the comments, drafted comments, see where this goes, but I'll make a motion to recommend this article.
Okay. Is
Am
there
I
a
going to
second?
get a second?
Is there a second? Sorry, I'm just looking to pull up the article itself.
Yeah, I just want to look at it again.
Yep, hold on. Oh, there it is, because it's very early. Okay, here I come, sorry. Sorry, it is a split one on this. And also the sponsor comments, perhaps. And I see, I thought I saw Mr. Stillwater. Do you have your hand? Yeah. Why don't you go ahead? Did you have a comment? Go ahead. I can't hear
Just
you.
wanted to make myself available tonight. I am from Green Maynard, and if there were any questions or any
Still can't hear you.
I could offer, I'm available.
Okay, you're coming in awfully soft. So if you can, if we do have a question, maybe.
Oh,
Oh, there you
all
go.
I was saying was that I'm from Green Maynard, and I'm here. If you have any questions or any clarification that I can offer,
Okay.
I'm available tonight.
So the motion to recommend was made by Peter. Did we get a second?
We did not.
Okay,
Not yet, anyway.
not yet.
So if I remember right, like a lot of us agreed with this idea, right? But we thought that that it was very vague in how it would get executed and what the potential costs could be, correct?
Correct.
Well, I mean, if we're doing, I don't know if it's appropriate to lobby for a second, but I mean, my feeling is the issue is important enough that I'm not wild about town meeting making kind of general statements that don't really have that
Mhm.
much impact. But so there's no cost to this. We're just saying that we think climate is a really important thing and that we would like the Board of Selectmen to do this sustainability committee. That's really the
See-
only,
No, no, no. We
thing.
already voted to have there already is a sustainability committee. This is asking for that committee to produce a climate action plan. Or ask
Okay,
the
yeah,
select
fine.
board to ask the sustainability committee to produce a climate action plan. And that's where some of the questions of, well, what does that entail? What could that cost? Even in terms of time of our, some of our town employees, that's cost. And that, right, that this is a little,
So if the sustainability committee wants to put together a climate action plan, then they can do so on their own accord. They don't need the select board to charge them to do that. So if they feel as though they want to do that and have that. So if it's not going to be the sustainability committee who does that, but rather the select board is now having to, is forced to commit staff time towards this, I think that at a minimum, we ought to understand what we're taking from in order to support this. And I just think it's too vague. It's producing a climate action plan, studying and making recommendations for specific strategies. So again, if it's just the committee that's doing that, they can already do it on their own. If they're, going to go to the select board, then they're taking select board time up, staff time up, and so forth. That's my main complaint.
mhm.
We commit to taking action to promote clean energy and reduce fossil fuel use. Well, again, it's vague. It doesn't understand. It doesn't lay out specific things that you could say, okay, here are actions that we're going to take, and here's what's going to be here's what the outcomes will be, and here's what the cost is, and so forth. So, again,
And
Mm.
if I could jump in for a minute, I think the way that Acton did their climate action plan is that they went and first went to 20 different communities, collected their climate action plans, looked at and tried to select the best things from those climate action plans, and then had what's the word I'm looking for? The stakeholder meetings with department heads and probably with the select board too, to refine it and make it a custom plan for that town. So you're correct in that there would probably be some staff time involved in this. I don't think it would be an excessive amount of staff time. There is the plan itself is not meant to be, is not meant to have a lot of cost associated with it. One of the things that I am bringing to the meeting tonight is this article that says the ice shelf could collapse within 5 years. The first sentence of the article, this is a scientific article in Science News. Oh, I can't read it, but it's in the article, they say it's 3 to 5 years and it will mean a 65 centimeter rise. So in 3 to 5 years, we could be looking at over a 2-foot rise in water in sea level. So, you think about the meeting that you had tonight and the kinds of things that you discussed and how you were allocating money. If you knew that within a year, the water was going to be going up 2 feet, how would the meeting have been different tonight? And, really what we're trying to do is do something that lets us get a little bit ahead of this thing.
Okay.
So that's the motivation and what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you. I don't think any of us are
Um,
debating the importance of climate change and climate change mitigation, and that this is an important topic that affects us all. I think what we are charged with doing is deciding whether or not this particular article works for the town as a citizen's, in a function that makes sense for the legislative body. And so our comments can 100% say we agree entirely with the subject matter of, bringing climate change to the forefront and doing what we can with it. But as a piece of legislation, this doesn't work. Does that make sense? That's my thought. We haven't voted yet, so.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay, Roger, I'm gonna keep it to my committee for a little bit so we can figure this out.
Sorry.
Thanks.
So, I mean, unless somebody's going to speak up fairly quickly, I'm weak on my Robert's rules of what order or whatever, but I think I would withdraw my motion then, or it becomes moot because I don't have a second.
Can I ask a process question?
Sure.
Does seconding mean that you support recommending, or does it just mean that you support taking a vote?
Support
Support
taking a vote,
recommending.
I think.
I
You
think
just-
it's supporting the vote because
So-
you can then vote either way.
Yeah, you
Oh,
can,
wow.
you can second and vote no against that if you want to, or you could make a, make a different motion.
All right, I feel like we should vote on it, so I would second Peter's motion.
Okay,
Well, if I can say for 1 second, I mean,
Mhm.
the other way to do it is I withdraw my motion and, one of you guys puts forward a motion not to recommend. Which might be a more straightforward thing than, voting down my motion to recommend. But either way, I think the committee will be expressing itself, so.
yeah.
So just to clarify, did you withdraw, or are you, are we moving forward with Daniel's second?
I don't know if the chair has accepted the second and then we have to vote or not.
I would-
mean,
okay,
I'm fine withdrawing.
I think I'm good. We have a motion made to recommend,
Okay.
and then Danielle seconded that motion.
Okay.
So now we will vote, and you can, a yes vote would mean that you are voting to recommend this article. A no vote means you're voting would not to be recommend. And an abstain is you don't feel that you can in either way. And then we will see what happens and go from there. Does that make sense?
I have a silly question, Alana.
It's
The
not
select-
silly.
The select board is paid or volunteer.
The select board or volunteer.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, but it's still time, Okay,
And they are right. And they have an admin, and they have Greg, our town administrator. And I think the time with regards to this article, the time was more in terms of what help, or I guess what town employees may be asked to do for the climate action plan.
got it.
Well, I guess,
Okay.
even though the select board is volunteer, they have, X amount of time in which to address all the various needs, all the various actions that they're doing. And now they're being asked to take on one more thing, which is rather ambiguous. So,
That is
If
true.
they can't solve climate change, then I don't know what we elect them
That's it. That's it. I'm out. Peace out.
for.
You're right.
Okay, so motion on the floor to recommend this article. And call for a roll call vote. Ken,
no,
Peter,
Yes.
Danielle,
No,
Elliot. Elliot, I don't think I heard. Elliot, are you there? Oh, man. We're gonna have to, we're gonna have to see if we want to postpone. Katie? I think you just muted yourself.
I thought I was unmuting myself.
Okay.
I'm still torn on this one. Can I abstain?
Mm-hmm. Jillian?
No.
And I'm a no as well. So Katie, can
Is-
you do some math on that?
Is
I lost
Elliot back yet?
I just unmuted myself again. So far, there is no for, one no, and one abstain. So the no's win.
No, 4, 1 yes, 1
Yes.
abstain.
Correct.
Just, I'm gonna be taking this back to Green Maynard. I want to make sure that I've understood your concerns. It's vaguely worded, it will take staff time, and you don't think that it was necessary.
we're gonna
Are those
continue.
the
We're gonna write our comments as well that will go to the warrant, so that might help. But yes, I think you have the gist of it.
Thank you.
I think even if Elliot votes either way, the no's overpower.
That is correct.
Yes.
You should mark like as one is
Absent.
absent.
Okay,
We can.
I got that.
Okay. Okay, so looking at the comments for this.
I'm writing some now.
Oh, okay. Great.
For no. Yeah.
Although they're, I mean, are they, who wrote the draft comments we're looking at?
Me.
Oh, okay. Might be easier just to edit those, or well, actually, I don't, what do I know?
But you can email me what you've got, Jillian, and
Oh yeah, I'm sort of I'm a person like it helps me when I write stuff down rather
Sure.
than just talking, but
Yeah.
we can totally do it live. Thanks for
I ha-
taking my words and putting them into full sentences too.
no problem.
I would recommend that maybe starting this out saying something like, you know,
Right.
the FinCom agrees with the spirit of this article and appreciates the urgency of addressing climate change. The committee was divided, you know, and then we can write that out.
Or maybe I'll start off with FinCom was not, how do you spell? In this recommendation.
Yep.
Or in not recommending. I don't want to be confusing. This article. Is that a double negative though? That's not good. How else did I say that?
Was divided.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so
Sorry, my dog's barking.
the efforts behind this climate change behind this article, and that climate change is an urgent matter affecting all of us. What do you think?
I think with the efforts for climate change, I think you might want to say something like FinCom acknowledges the efforts that Maynard has been making towards addressing
Okay.
climate change. And understand it's an urgent matter. Like, I feel like just the first part of the sentence needs to be a little shorter.
Da, da, da.
I get rid of the while at the beginning of that sentence.
Danielle, she's a cutie.
I think you can take that. I think this is redundant. Because I
Yeah.
say it in the next.
Looks good to me.
I would say there's two asks in that sentence. I would change one ask to a request, maybe. Maybe the second ask to a request.
This one. This article. Or this one, but rather requests.
What's the verb in the article?
Good question.
I think charges. You
Yeah,
charge them.
That's it, yeah. I couldn't remember.
So I could say to charge the select board.
Well, I think it's the select board that's supposed to, is it, it would take the wording right off the, I don't know who's charging whom.
I think it's asking, it charges the select board to ask
Right.
for the climate action plan from the sustainability committee.
Right.
So it's the select board that has the action to take. Okay. Can we move on? All right.
You'll be recommending a no vote?
It's technically, we're not recommending.
Yeah, it is a we voted not to recommend.
Okay,
You know, I think that in the second sentence there, we ought to
Mhm.
acknowledge the efforts not only of Green Maynard and the Sustainability Committee, but the town as a whole. I mean, the town's taken several steps to, you know, to address,
In the electric charging stations.
yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I don't know that we need to, you know, to go into,
Right.
so acknowledges the efforts that Green Maynard and Sustainability Committee have, you know,
Just and the town with a capital T.
And
the,
or town administration. I don't know.
no, the town of Maynard.
Okay.
Town of Maynard has voted these things in at, or just the town, as Jill was suggesting, Yeah, we voted these things at town meeting before, so
Right.
this looks good to me.
Okay. All right, moving on. This draft control wide, this was my draft comment, not Jill's, because so we had a discussion about, this is the one for the solid waste collections, the citizens petition. We had a discussion at a meeting with town council, the town administrator, the town moderator, myself, and a member of the select board about whether or not this control was going to be ruled out of order or not. The decision was made that it will be left for a vote. It will not be ruled out of order prior to the vote. However, it is not an actionable item that the town, with procurement laws and with laws having to do with how public funds are spent, you can't have public funds spent for private contract payments. So passage of this article, which asks for the town to do that, and if it passed, the answer would be okay, but no, we cannot.
So we have to make a vote on this.
Yes, correct.
So I'll make a motion, we do not recommend.
Do I have a
Control
second?
Y.
I'll second. This is Peter.
Okay. Is there any further discussion or any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ken?
No.
Wait, sorry, what was your motion?
Oh, excuse me, yes.
Okay, the
Sorry.
motion, yeah, the motion on the floor, motion on the floor is to not recommend.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Peter,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
Elliot,
Sorry, wait, just clarifying, this is
Yep. we're
Accept-
on,
recommending the thing?
we are voting, so the motion
three?
is to not recommend.
Yeah,
So
And
a
so-
yes vote is to not recommend.
okay. Does that? I don't even remember. All right, just yes, I guess.
No,
think I-
go
No,
ahead.
it's
and
okay.
Go
Well,
ahead
That's
and ask
fine.
the question.
Initially, I think I was initially the one that said no on this, so I guess I'll say no again.
Yeah, this is the one about trash collection.
Oh, it's not? Am I thinking of
No.
a different one?
You might be thinking of a different one.
Okay, yes, just say yes. That's fine.
Okay. Who am I missing? Katie?
Yes,
And I'm a yes. Did I get everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
you did.
All right. Draft control Z. And these, sorry, I think I we had not, okay, yeah, there's more. This is just notes. These aren't,
We did vote
Yeah.
on this.
what's that?
We did vote on this. at the
Oh, I'm
last
sorry.
meeting.
I'm right. This is the one about, I'm getting ahead of myself. Draft control Z, we did vote not to recommend. Okay.
Correct.
Why did I still have this in red? Did we?
Well,
change-
because we didn't review the comments.
We didn't
yet.
review the comments. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. These are the comments concerning draft control Z about the recording of meetings. Are there any changes or comments on these? Okay.
It's nitpicky,
Okay.
but the third sentence,
Mhm.
I'm not in love with.
Okay.
I mean, maybe people would disagree with this, but I mean, if it was as simple as just, hitting a switch and instantly everything could be recorded,
Mhm.
I think we would support this. So I don't, that sentence to me gives the feeling like, wait, we're already, doing enough. So
Yeah.
I do think we could do more. I think the recording thing, is a good idea, as I've said
Mhm.
last week. So I just don't want to give the impression that we're saying, unless we intend to say this,
Right.
that, oh, wait, we're already doing what we should do. And, we don't really support doing the recording. To me, it's much more, I think it's hard to just pass a blanket thing that says, okay, record
Yeah.
everything without
So-
figuring out the whys and hows yet.
Right. Right.
So,
So if you were to take that sentence out, you could take
Yeah.
that out and then put however at the beginning of the next one. FinCom encourages citizen participation in fostering an open legislative process. However, there are many weekly public
that's a
meetings
good
in
idea,
town.
Ken. Yep.
Mhm. Mhm.
If people are okay with that.
No, I see what you're, and I do. I don't think it's the recording that we're like objecting to being recorded or having them recorded more. It's a practicality and whatnot issue.
I don't, yeah, and I will just say, I don't know that recording is necessarily I'm just one person's opinion here. I don't know that recording is necessarily, universally positive.
Okay.
Okay, I think, it's been shown in many venues to affect the dynamics of the conversation. So,
Mhm.
but having said that, I don't disagree with what Peter was suggesting.
I think the last sentence is good too. Like, let's continue the conversation. Let's see.
Right.
Yeah,
You
not
know.
so much.
No?
I'm just saying, it's
Maybe
one
we'll have a
person's
future thing
opinion.
to disagree on.
Well, I mean, we can always take it out because
No, it's fine. It's
No, he
fine.
agrees with the sentence. He doesn't, he just doesn't want to, he doesn't want to have all the meetings recorded.
oh,
I just, so I think that there are meetings that should be recorded, and that includes certainly select board and the school committee. And I even suggest that there are probably, a number of FinCom meeting that should be recorded. I just don't think that it's necessary to record, all
Yeah.
of them.
And not that it necessarily applies to this, but I'm curious what your opinion is if it's different on streaming versus recording.
That's a good question.
So,
But- Well, wait, can we focus though? Because it's 10 of 9 and I think we have a lot more discussion to go. And I'm sure Ken can talk a lot about his feelings on recording and streaming.
I think streaming is good.
Okay.
Recording, not so much.
Okay.
Well, so I guess where I'm going with it is, I agree with Peter's comment. I do wonder if we're missing something because it was
Okay.
brought up previously that, it's difficult for a lot of people to physically get to meetings.
Mhm.
And so I don't know, I'm not necessarily recommending that we put something in, but it does feel
Right.
like we missed acknowledging that there's
Okay.
potential opportunity for us to do better with technology in some way. I don't
Okay.
know if we incorporated into that last sentence.
No, I see what you're saying.
Well, so the
So we could-
article specifically talks about recording,
Right.
doesn't
Right.
bring up streaming. So,
But we could say something like, we acknowledge that,
what is it Peter said last week? In 5 years, we'll have, this will all be solved.
or we acknowledge that recordings, let me form my thought. Basically that we acknowledge that getting to meetings can be challenging and the recordings can be helpful. It's, we're not, we agree with that sentiment,
I think
but we think that
I think
this
that's
needs
already
more.
incorporated in that last sentence that, we should, continue the discussion, I think is how you put it.
What if we added on to the second sentence? So FinCom
Okay.
encourages citizen participation in fostering an open legislative process,
Mhm.
acknowledging that opportunities exist in leveraging technology.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good. Because it's not just about convenience. That makes it more broad.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who works full-time with small kids, like there are meetings that
Yeah,
I can do a lot more if I don't have to physically be there. So
Right.
I think this gets our point that we care about it, but this necessarily isn't the
Right,
right
right,
article for us to support.
correct.
So what's ironic here is that there are only 3 of us left that have ever been in person. And
Have ever been to our, I know, and I have all of your little placards, your names. I got them made, guys. It's gonna happen.
Maybe.
Not if Jill has anything to say about it.
That's true. We'll miss you, Jill. We'll have you on Zoom. You'll be our
Um,
hybrid.
I had to go to work and got exposed to COVID, so that's great.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Aw.
All right. Good with this?
Yeah,
For Control Z, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. These are not fleshed out. The next ones, this was just basically cut and paste some of Jill's thoughts. So don't go on these as being our comments just yet. Maybe I should.
Can I?
Yeah.
So I was looking at the draft warrant,
Mhm.
and if I'm interpreting the list of articles together,
Mhm.
is the proposal to vote both of these citizens petitions related to the school stuff together?
No, I don't think you can because of the money. I think they both have to,
Well, so
because of the amounts, I think they have to be separated.
so if you look at Article 10 and 11, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at what you emailed. I don't know if it's worth putting up.
Yep. Hold on, I'll get there.
But it appears to me that, VS means vote separately. And then there's DTVT, which I'm not sure what is the abbreviation for,
Oh, wait,
but
I'm not
there's
looking at what you're looking
DTVT1 and then DTVT2. And then
so he has an
DTVT.
abbreviation there on the page somewhere. Remind me when this,
at. Yeah, I'm trying to pull up what you're looking at. Hold on.
could you remind me what date that this was that you sent that out? Or Peter, do you have the date?
Yeah, let me it's an attachment to an email from FinCom
Mhm.
on 4/7/22.
Thank you.
It's W working draft warrant.
Okay, yeah, that is what I think. I just wasn't looking at. Oh, I see what you're looking at. Right, it's the chart. Sorry, hold on.
It's the
I got-
summary, it's the index of the article.
Right.
And, I guess maybe I should send a comment to the moderator, but given the vastly different size of appropriations,
Mhm.
or, it's not even, I guess it's an appropriation. I
We lost
question
a bit
whether
of that,
these should be
Peter.
voted together. They seem substantive enough that
You're
I
right.
can
I didn't
imagine
catch that.
one attracting a fair amount more support than in the other.
And I do believe, yes, I mean, we can, there's still time before
But
town
I
meeting to
think
address
also
that, but
someone can object from the
yes, I was
floor.
gonna say, we can
to-
also object to the consent agenda at town meeting.
It's not really the consent agenda, it's the
Or isn't that
grouping
what,
them, but anyway, voting together.
isn't that what it's
But
called?
yeah.
It's the consent,
No, I think CC1 is the consent agenda. I don't,
Okay.
again, I'm not quite sure I know what the difference is in the
Okay.
coding, but here.
but no, that's a good question. I can email.
So anyway, that brings me to, I guess, maybe I'll open remarks on these two articles. I guess I can't, I can't support the second one. That's the 400,000. This just blows way too big a hole in the budget, and the idea that we have to, figure out where to cut that from.
Mhm.
And I mean, a little bit, I don't know what weight to give to this.
Mhm.
And it's a little weird to say it this way, but it seems like the schools are going to make do on this. And I'm not quite sure how. But I haven't heard the usual, not the usual, it's a real thing. I don't mean to downplay it, but I haven't heard the school committee out saying, okay, if this is what the budget is, we're going to have to cut all the athletics and we're going to have to cut all this stuff. And I'm not quite sure why I haven't heard that, but it seems like, maybe it is COVID funding or something, and they're figuring they can still make do with this. So, on that basis, I'm certainly against the 400,000 one.
I think I've heard
Um,
more about not being able to include some of the additions that were in their budget proposal, but you're right, I have not heard
But
the
some of
cutting, any
yeah.
cutting.
So I'm a little more open to the 120 just because it's smaller and it would be an easier hole to fix in our budget.
Mhm.
Even that, I do have problems with the process, and I'm curious what other people think too. But that's my opening comments anyway.
Okay. I sent this kind of late, so I want to bring it up on screen. I was crunching some numbers just so that we knew exactly what we were talking about with these. So this is on board docs, and I did send it an email, but like I said, it was right before the meeting, so you may not have looked at it yet. So this is make it a little bit bigger. So Article 10, control AA is the 120, and Article 11 comes out to be 362,526, if I'm doing the math right. I certainly hope I am. Someone correct me. So if both passes, it would be a total of 482,626. The school department received 530,147 increase over FY22 in the general fund article already, the one that we passed, that we voted to recommend. If both of these pass, and with that increase, that would mean the increase to the school department over FY22 is right there, 1,012,733. Our total levy limit increase from FY22 to FY23 is 1,059,382. That means that if both of these were to pass, the entirety of the budget outside of school would be left with $46,000. Just to put a little
Alana,
other, yeah,
Sorry, can I just ask you to clarify?
sure, please.
The levy limit increase you're saying here is both the 2.5 increase plus new growth?
I took the amount we budgeted at special town meeting for FY23 to, and the amount we are budgeting in the general fund article for FY '23.
Okay, fair enough. Yep, that's a good number.
Okay. Employee benefits increased, and again, I went with the special town meeting number from FY '22 because that's where we usually change the budget, if at all. So I didn't want to use ATM and ATM because they're not always the same. From FY '22 to FY '23 went up $386,000. Currently, schools represent about 70% school employees of that amount, which is $270,209. Just puts, this increase into a little bit of a perspective. So if these were to pass, the question is, what impact would that have? And as I said before, we do not need to decide on town meeting floor what to do if they do pass. We have time to figure that out. And there's basically 4 ways to make it work. One is to take it from free cash. And again, this 482, that's both combined. So it may not be that. It may be, only the 120, or it may be only the other one. So, but just putting that there, if they were to both pass. The issue with using free cash is that this is for operating costs for the schools, which isn't really what free cash is for. It's for one-time expenses. We're not the best at that for snow and ice. That is true. Because that tends to recur, and also free cash already has 110,000 going to the schools. So, it's possible that we could be like, well, we'll just take that away out of free cash from the schools and basically give it back to them so that we'd only have to make up 372,000. I mean, that's not really the spirit of, I'm just saying. And then we could take it out of stabilization. The concern here, and Greg raised this in a meeting on Friday, is that would cause some concern with our bond rating, that the auditor is going to see us pulling stabilization for operating, which again is not really what stabilization is there for, and that you need to have a plan to pay it back, which we don't really have entirely. And with us needing to borrow for New Green Meadow, which is going to come up at annual town meeting next year, FY '24, that it's maybe not a good time to potentially impact our bond rating. The other option is to do a 2.5 override at special town meeting, which would then also require a ballot vote, because that's how Prop 2.5 overrides work. So it would go on the warrant, and then we'd have a ballot vote. Obviously, this increases taxpayers' bills to cover that. And we have the cost of running a ballot election. And then the other option is to make cuts. But as I said above, that would be serious cuts to the entirety of the rest of the town to make up for that. Again, not if it's the 120 versus the full amount, it's a different level of cut. But so that's my numbers for our discussion. Just wanted to make sure we had it spelled out.
Can I add another option?
Sure.
So we haven't generally done it, but so we would have to address this at special town meeting in the fall. We we could have more information about local aid and about other changes to the budget.
Mm-hmm.
That might make it easier to either see more revenue or to cut other costs. And I would just throw out for context, and, you know, I think last year may have been an exceptional year with higher new growth, but, you know, we are dealing with 1.5 million in free cash this year. And just for a reminder to folks, that means in FY21, we had 1.5 million more in, you know, either revenue or less in spending that we could have allocated out and spent. And it was only because of conservative budgeting that we didn't spend that money, you know, through the operating budget. So, you know, I'm not sure if that's really predictive into FY23, but, you know, it's an indication there may be some room to do something in the fall that isn't quite as drastic as the options outlined there. So,
Yeah, and I believe we had asked, I think there were some members on the committee that had asked Greg about that free cash number and why was it so high, and can we dig into that a little and see if there may be either some trends or something that wasn't caught, which is, I think, a very good thing to do and a good point. But at
Well,
this point, I certainly wouldn't bank on having this kind of number again. But you're not wrong in that sometimes by special town meeting, we will have more information. Sometimes it goes not in our favor. We all remember the special town meeting just recently, was it FY21, where we had to make cuts to the budget at special town meeting.
Yes.
So
yeah, and frankly,
again,
we may be dealing with a cut in state aid
correct,
rather than an increase.
correct.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Based on the numbers you gave, I don't really see it being much of a discussion. It's like, are we going to allocate our entire budget to one thing that may or may not need it, or are we going to give ourselves flexibility? That's kind of the debate. I don't really see how you can support that side.
Other thoughts?
So
Committee
if
members?
we do decide to hold off a vote on that, can we, to Peter's comment, can we add to our comments that we are deferring to fall for more clarity in budget openness, or no?
No, we would still call for a vote on what is presented to us now with the information we have now.
Okay.
So our
if we-
our recommendation is supposed to be to town meeting voters. This is not about our thought process.
Right.
This is about our recommendation on what, you know, what the matter is before them and what our recommendation is relative to a vote.
And if we voted not to recommend these, we certainly in our comments could say, you know, if more funds become available, we, you know, may at special town meeting in the fall recommend some adjustment to the school budget.
Mhm.
You know, if there are funds available, we could say something like that. I
Right,
think
that
it
makes
gets
sense.
to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
No, that answered that. Thank you.
Any further
Come on,
discussion?
Ken.
Oh,
Dying to know what you're going to do, Ken, or what you're thinking. I don't know what I'm doing either, so I can't.
No, I mean, you know, I confess that I feel a little bit conflicted on this. I think we have a budget process out there. You know, I understand the constraints that the town as a whole, and obviously the town administrators having to deal with, you know, and coming, you know, forward with this, but, you know, I also feel sort of like you that, you know, each year it seems like the, you know, the the school being the biggest part of the budget, ends up being where where it's easiest to cut. I remember, several years ago when, it happened literally, at the February meeting, when, without any notice whatsoever. And it seems like, this is sort of back to, towards that. And again, I do have an appreciation for the constraints that they find themselves in, this is not just about, somebody else, the town as a whole finds itself in, but it's, this is not the way to do it, for sure.
Yeah, I think certainly putting some of that thought process into the comments makes a lot of sense. Is there any
right.
further discussion or?
Can I
Mhm.
start with that? I would make a motion not to recommend, and I'm sorry, you have to help me with the one that brings it up to the full level. So Article 11, which I think is Control BB, but I don't have that in front of me.
Sorry.
That's
So,
BB,
so AA is the 120 and
Yep.
BB is the 362
right?
Yeah.
or 3.
Yeah. So as a starting point, I would make a motion not to recommend control number BB.
And I'll second that motion.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, hearing
So
none.
just to be
Yep.
clear, are we
Sure.
moving AA and BB together, or are we just talking about BB right now?
Right
That's-
now, we're just talking about BB.
Okay.
There was a concern that it looked like perhaps the town moderator is considering having at town meeting AA and B, or whatever the article numbers are. But AA and BB voted on together, and I think, would like to ask him about that because that doesn't seem like the best idea. But right now, we are just voting not to recommend BB.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll do roll call. Ken,
Yes.
Peter?
Yes, to not recommend. in other words.
Yes.
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes,
Elliot,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. All right, would we like to look at some comments for that? Or would we like to go on for discussion and voting on BB?
I mean, AA.
There, sorry, AA.
I say that, by the way, Alana, knowing that, it's easy for me who's not in the hot seat trying to organize all this stuff.
Oh,
So
no, I know
I'm
you
just
know what this
trying-
is like.
Just trying to help out.
I know, I
you know.
appreciate it.
Peter and I
appreciate it.
have a great deal of appreciation for the position you're in.
Thank you, I know you do.
So, from a process perspective, I think, it doesn't make a lot of sense to sit there and look at the comments
Okay.
for AA and BB until we've done the vote on the two and then sort of work towards that. And then
Okay.
what do we have? One more after that?
Yeah, we're doing good. So discussion for AA, which is the 120.
So just to clarify, so I know you had discussions with, town administrator and others
Mhm.
about the impacts of these
Yes,
and about the procedure going forward. So if either one of these pass,
Mhm.
the vote on the budget and what order is the budget and the free cash and AA and BB taking place?
sure. budget is voted on before. Let's see. Revolving funds, salary,
I
free
can,
free cash is before, and the budget are both before these two.
So the impact is the budget gets passed, certified free cash gets passed or voted on, I should say.
Mhm.
And then if these two get passed, then we just move forward to then we just, then we go forward to special town meeting in the fall.
Yes.
Where we address this specifically.
Yes. Which would, and if it were a free cash change, then that would obviously be another article changed, so. Whereas if it was just the budget article changed, it would be that one. So depending on how we decide to resolve and make a balanced budget would depend on how many articles for the special town meeting to fix it. Does that make sense?
So the budget would be out of order essentially until.
The
town
budget
meeting.
will be
Special
out of
town meeting.
balance
Out of
until
balance.
Out of balance.
unbalanced.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thank you.
it'll be out of balance until we fix it.
Can we even go back to certified free cash at fall special town meeting?
Oh,
I'm assuming
I
Greg's
don't think anyone asked
proposal
that question.
was to use FY '22 free cash to fund this. Not the free cash we're voting on at this meeting, this upcoming meeting. but
No,
to
I
use
believe it
free
was
cash
this.
for-
No,
oh,
because this is
okay.
for budget FY '23, we can't use FY '22.
That's already appropriated.
Right, so it was concerning this free cash amounts, these amounts, from the from the 1.5 million.
Well, no, I mean, it's often the case that at special town meeting in the fall, we would have FY '22 free cash certified, and we could appropriate it to supplement the FY '23 budget at that point. Again, it's not sustainable. We shouldn't be using one-time revenue for recurring expenses. I get all that, but
Right,
generally free cash certification would happen in September or so. We were very late this year, and we could appropriate that money at a fall town meeting to supplement. the
oh, I
FY
see,
23
oh, I
budget.
see, okay. That option was not discussed. So. I can't
Yeah, I
really
mean, we
speak to,
couldn't
but
do it at annual town meeting if we're trying to juggle the budget there, because we don't know the number, but,
right,
I don't know the idea of revisiting our appropriation of FY '21 free cash, but conceivably we could do that too and take the money back from the bleachers. We don't want to spend free cash on recurring expenses.
no,
It's
but
bad.
we're gonna have to solve, if this passes, we're gonna have to solve it some way, so it's a possibility. So we should know.
So the problem is if we use free cash or something like that, the problem just gets doubled next year. I
Right,
mean, we just keep kicking this can down the road. So
does that just
if you
open up
take, you take, so you take free cash, to pay this. So then that becomes the new number. So next year, you've got to not only make up, the difference, the money that we spent free cash on, but now, presumably next year, we're in a position where we're doing, 2% instead of 4% or 3% instead of 5% or whatever it is. So
Yes.
you just end up, this is the reason why you don't do it this way.
And not to be dramatic, but when you kick the can down the road, you end up with 70 million in pension liability.
Yes.
well rounded, Elliot, I like it,
Well,
bring it back, you're,
okay,
You
but
got it.
in fairness, we, have looked for several years at a growing hole in the budget of charter school assessments. And, I think there is certainly a strong argument to be made that in failing to address the needs of the school department, what we're doing is adding to that other, in adding to that hole in the future, that more parents are going to choose AMSA over Maynard, and we're going to end up paying for that. And so, there's various holes here, and, the same thing with, depletion of our capital resources, and we don't spend enough on our roads, that we're kicking all kinds of cans down the road. It's just which particular one do we not want to trip over, or whatever the
Right.
metaphor might be.
Right.
But I think there is a case that if we're continuing to not adequately fund the schools, there's no way they're going to attract students back. And that's an
I'm
issue.
personally still not really satisfied with knowing what the school budget really goes toward. I think we've asked for it before, but I never felt like, if somebody asked me from outside Maynard what the school budget goes toward, I don't think I would have a good answer. And so I don't feel I can evaluate, if we're adding to a budget that I don't know where it's going already. It's just putting a black box in a black box. So I have a tough time with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a tough time that a one-time fix of 120,000 isn't going to fix the problem. Like it's just a one-time fix. And
Absolutely.
so
And-
long-term, is that really going to retain more students? And parents want to see a more solid solution than a one-time free cash or however it's done. But it needs to be a reoccurring thing, not.
I think my biggest concern with the 120 is that, from the COVID funds we were able to allocate to the town, there was a possibility to request to make up for this money there, but it was used for other purposes. And I know that there's lots of competing interests as well, but it could have potentially been funded from that, if we deem that it was of the highest priority to supplemental revenue loss.
Are you speaking about the ARPA funds ask, which is going toward water and sewer infrastructure, and that there was a request from the school? It was not for 120. It was for
No.
like 58.
No, there was,
Oh, okay.
I thought that we did discuss this as another topic. I'm not sure if anyone else is on that remembers the acronym, but there was another funding source that was unique to the schools. Was it the CARES Act or something?
Oh, the one that's unique to the schools is ESSER.
ESSER.
ESSER, and they are getting over $500,000 from ESSER that in FY23. They're getting over $1 million in ESSER in FY24.
So I'm going to be honest. I don't remember which one it was, but it was
Okay.
ESSER or CARES or one of the other ones
Mhm.
that I believe we could have requested the revenue loss there, but I think we decided to do other things. But this is a little bit of me waving my hands. I remember this conversation, but I don't remember which fund it was.
Okay.
But I think Alana has it right that I'm pretty sure it's an ARPA thing, and their request was more in the $50,000-$60,000 range and not this 120.
Right.
Yes.
Pretty sure that's what we talked about.
And it was decided to go with the Justin DeMarco's recommendation for the full amount for the water sewer infrastructure updates, but should that contract that he's trying to go for not cost what the amount that he was asking, that, and there would be any extra in ARPA, that it would then go to the schools. But we won't know that, I think, until the fall, I want to say. So what do we think, y'all? Kevin, you have your hand up. Would you like a minute?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'd like to point out that I've sent some emails that has some information relevant to the questions asked. I strongly encourage the committee to look into the Medicaid reimbursement and also the remaining unfunded items from the school. One of those items that could potentially be covered by that 120 are clerical operations. Those operations are actually a revenue generator. Last fiscal year, they generated approximately $163,000. So if we were to fund all the remaining unfunded items present for the school, so if we were to full like what they're asking for, because we can't force them to spend on clerical activities, but if we give them everything they ask, the total remaining unfunded items is 156K. Last year, those clerical activities generate 163K. So by virtue of just fully funding the unfunded items, we would actually net positive $7,000 based upon last year's numbers and performance. But I would encourage, and I would also point out kind of the financial structure of the Medicaid reimbursement is kind of wonky. The efforts needed to generate those revenues is paid by the schools, but the reimbursement goes into the general fund and then goes into free cash. So in effect, we do have some recurring revenue that is being credited as free cash. And that recurring revenue could, I know it's possible misclassification of funds, but that recurring revenue from the Medicaid reimbursement could be used to fund the difference between unfunded items that they're asking for and what we are funded.
I did put in a question about the Medicaid reimbursement and how it works to our town accountant and town administrator, and we are going to put that on a future agenda.
Say that I think given our discussion of funding sources and the concern about free cash flow and how this would be a one-time thing, I think de facto would not be a one-time thing. It would be, we are taking from essentially what would essentially a misclassification of recurring revenue to fund the difference. I know there's probably a little bit more, but again, there are possibilities for amendments to make the numbers match. But if you look at just how the money is flowing, that's recurring revenue that's going to free cash. That's recurring revenue that if we don't fund the schools, we're actually going to lose out on, because the schools are just going to deprioritize the clerical activities and prioritize the activities that actually benefit the students and not. Yeah. But I think that these facts are relevant to the discussion at hand.
Do we have any thoughts on moving forward with draft control AA?
All right. I will make a motion not to recommend AA.
Okay. Is there a second?
And
I'll second that.
Any
just
further?
as
Yep.
a word of explanation,
Mhm.
in case people think, wait, Peter, that seems opposite what you've been. I guess I think there's still some opportunity to readdress the school budget at special town meeting in the fall, should the need be there. I am incredibly hesitant. I'd say it's only 120,000, but it's a fairly significant number to start out the year behind the 8 ball, having to make up money. So as part of my dissatisfaction with the school budget is frankly a process-based thing that I frankly think they got kind of rooked late in the process. But I'm not sure I could come up with a better allocation of our money given all that. Even we have limited money this year, and so all that on the whole, That's why I made the motion not to recommend.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, then I will do a roll call vote. The motion on the floor is to not recommend draft control AA. Peter, we'll start with you because you made it.
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Elliot, I don't hear him. Jillian,
Yes.
I am a yes. We'll give, oh, Elliot, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay,
Yep, I agreed to not recommend it.
okay, thank you so much. Okay. So,
Relative to, relative to comments,
Mhm.
could you bring Jill's comments back up, please?
yeah, I was going to, I'm wondering if these ones are gonna be maybe a little
No, I understand.
more
I mean, I
tricky.
think,
And-
It's more like just thought flow and bullet points. It's not really
right.
paragraphs.
Right.
I mean, I think, if you were to draw a common thread, that there's a budget process that we go through. There are not good, alternatives if the town is to look at other alternatives, they really should not be tapping into free cash or stabilization, which leaves you, with, we've already demonstrated the fact that cuts alone would not be sufficient. And so
Mhm.
that leaves you with raising revenues through Prop 2.5, which I think is a longer term conversation. So I guess my point is I think it's, I don't need to say it again, but I think it's a worthy conversation to have, but it's a conversation to have, and it's not a conversation to have at town meeting. It's a conversation to have before town meeting.
Mhm.
I might recommend to take the language you had in the article with the town budget, that we were talking about how there's a budgeting process and all the different members that were involved in this process.
Mhm.
If we start out the comments maybe with those few sentences here, and then we can go in and say,
Yeah, we don't normally vote on the comments. In the interest of moving it forward, we might follow the same idea that Peter had mentioned before, which is to send them out, and it's obviously we're not wanting to discuss or deliberate. It's just to decide, is this something to be discussed at a future meeting?
Right.
And if somebody wants to discuss it at a future meeting, I think we bring it up at the next meeting. And
Yeah.
And I mean, purely editorial, and feel free to disregard it.
Mhm.
But the notes you typed up about the budget and, what the total available budget increase was.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably some of that
Mhm.
could go into, I think, at least for me, why,
Yeah,
I ended up wanting to not recommend.
sure. It's a good education piece. Yeah, so let's do that. We'll write up these comments and just send them out. And if there's any need to have them discussed, it's going to have to be pretty quick, though. The problem is, see, my hesitation is
Absolutely.
they want this by the select board meeting tomorrow night. So,
So first off, you can send the comments in when you get them done.
Right,
And
so
if the the select board is not voting on our comments.
No, correct.
So, you
So-
send them in and, when you get them in, you get them in and, so,
Right. So my thought process was if they likely cannot get in for the printed warrant deadline, which Becky's under for this week, then we can just hold them and we can give them a quick look over at a meeting easily enough at
yeah.
the next meeting. Because they're not gonna, if we're not gonna make, my point is, if we're not gonna make the deadline, then why rush?
Well,
We'll
and.
talk
and,
about
the
them at our
other-
next meeting and then
right.
we'll put them in a separate thing.
The other
because-
thing I would say, the chances of us having to have some sort of sheet with supplemental recommendations that are not covered in the printed town warrant, I think is pretty high.
It's been a tough ATM cycle, as we've all
Yeah.
noted. There's been a
Yeah.
lot of changes, a lot of last minute things. We've done the best we can. But, I'd rather get good comments out for this is, this one and the free cash and all of that. I would rather have good comments
Yep.
that we have all agreed on than to try to rush it through.
So we
So
have
that-
one more, right?
We have one more to look at. One more. So this, let me pull this up. Is again, the CPC, we discussed this a bit last time. And this is the one where they're going back to an appropriation that was made in, is it FY20 or
FY20.
annual town meeting of 2020? So I believe it was FY21.
No, it would have been.
No, it would have been because it's
appropriation.
CPC. Yep,
It
because
would
they're
have been
behind. Okay.
appropriation.
So they went and for an amount in their appropriation of $50,000 for Maynard High School front field irrigation. They had since being in contact with Justin and whatnot when they started the process. It went back to say, we really don't even know if this field is right for this and we need to figure it out. We don't want to just put in an irrigation system that's wrong, etc. So they're coming back to say that they would like to spend this 50,000 on a study and beginning the process. It will likely not pay for the whole new irrigation system if that's the route they go, but they didn't want to mislead, or use the funds in not the way that was specifically said. I mean, it was a little vague, as you can see, but they want to be sure that they're doing this properly. So that's what this is.
So I think, I have a bit of an objection on this, is that,
Okay.
this was brought to town meeting to vote for, implementation of a particular project, that is to install the front field irrigation.
Mhm.
And now it's been determined that a study is necessary. And I'm not saying that's a bad idea. I'm just saying, the whole thing that went forward was to, install this. And now we're basically saying we're looking to use this money, and it's something, I'm assuming that they're not spending all 50,000 on the study. But if that's what they were, it would, is it $5,000 that's being spent on the study? Is it $2,000 being spent on the study? Is it $30,000? There's no real information other than the fact that the money that was supposed to pay for the whole irrigation project is now being used to do this without any estimate of what the total project might be. And I
Okay.
just wonder if town meeting voters, if they knew that this project might be, I don't know, is it going to be $70,000? Is it going to be $170,000? You know, this whole thing to me ought to be brought back to town meeting voters, you know, for their consideration. Just my
Okay, I'm gonna
opinion.
correct one thing. So on April 5th, I had forwarded from Justin DeMarco the feasibility study proposal for this. It's like a 15-page document. On page 2, it says the total investment for all 3 phases above would be $20,000. So the study, excuse me, is being budgeted at about 20,000, which would leave 30 to begin the project. I would have to go through and read this a little more carefully if it gives any sort of idea on how much the overall project would be. A lot of this is like who these people are. It's Tom Irwin Advisors. But I don't think there is an estimate on the full amount of the project. But I think what part of what happened, from my understanding, is, you know, CPC projects come before the CPC sometimes from, you know, not the town, from a citizen, from a you know, the rec department, somebody or whatever, and they thought this field needs an irrigation system. Let's go to CPC and see if we can get an irrigation system. And then when it's, you know, when the ball started rolling and some research was starting to be done, it was, you know what, I don't know that irrigation system is really the right thing for this field. We should figure this out. We shouldn't just go put an irrigation system in. That's my understanding of how this.
Is this for the field that's on the corner of 117 and Parker?
I don't think so.
This is the front
The
field.
front
In
field,
front of the high school, and so they're, you know, it was originally designed as a practice field.
Mhm.
But because of the lack of space elsewhere, they use it pretty regularly now.
it was basically where the old high school was when they took down that building. They were left with this space.
Is anybody familiar with this field? Like, is it mostly dust or something?
I was wondering that too, Elliot. What kind of shape? Like, is it terrible? Terrible shape?
I recall it having issues getting started. I do recall there being some trouble.
They did not design this as an athletic field. They basically just
Right.
flattened it out, grassed it over, figured that this would be good enough for, for practices and so forth.
Mhm.
And so, there's nothing wrong with that. That was the original intent. And yet now that it's being, there's a shortage of space. And so they're using it quite often. Again, this goes back a little bit to the comments that I made about the free cash where you have projects going forward. To me, the projects ought to be going forward with a fuller explanation. And so if there's $20,000, why is it that, sponsor comments doesn't sit
That's a good
there and
point.
say, we're going to use $20,000 of this for a study. And that we estimate that the cost of an irrigation system would be between, $70,000 and $150,000 or whatever it is.
We could put that in.
But, the sponsor comments are supposed to be there to inform town meeting voters as the pros and cons and the implications and impact of these votes. And we have, I guess a responsibility to sort of enforce this, that if a sponsor is coming forward, that they put put this information, in there.
I mean, looking at this attachment you sent,
Mhm.
Alana.
Yeah.
And then somebody may have to help me with numbers here, but so we're going to spend 20,000 on this assessment,
Mhm.
which doesn't get us a field. The likely result of the assessment is, the field isn't usable, or, we have to spend something on the order of $500,000 to upgrade the field in order to make it usable. I mean, that's a rough guess based on, I think it was like $1 million to do Fowler Fields.
Well, they're not talking, so I'm just asking a question. They're not talking about upgrading this, are they?
Well, I think that's the point of this feasibility study. It's to, how to make this into a real athletic field.
Jesus.
Which, I mean,
No,
we're not gonna be able to
my
afford now
frustration
anyway.
is, when we were sitting here talking about this, when the school was being built, they were like, no, we're just gonna flatten it out. It's just gonna be a practice field.
Sure.
They're not gonna do anything. And so they took a shortcut at that point
Mhm.
that we're now having to spend, X hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix.
Well, that's only if we we did the high school with the idea that we weren't getting an athletic field. This would get us an athletic field, but I'm not sure we can afford an athletic field right now.
Does
So,
any
I mean,
part of the new school building also come with grounds? Do you know what I mean with the MSBA?
The Green
Grant.
Meadow.
not for an elementary school. Actually,
Yeah, like
apparently
park
not for high
grounds,
school
but
either,
not
because we didn't
athletic
get it for high
grounds.
school.
Okay.
What about the Green Meadow football team? Where are they gonna play?
High school,
I think we need to get a field for them.
the Renegades.
So, I mean, is it, people on the committee tell me if
Mhm.
this seems off, but putting this all together for myself anyway, it seems like, somebody went and got the 50K for the irrigation.
Mhm.
Justin rightly dragged his feet saying, that's stupid. That's a stupid waste of money, that the field isn't worth irrigating.
Mhm.
So we're going to end up spending that money doing a study, but then it seems unlikely to me we're going to then turn around and spend what I am thinking is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars to actually implement the recommendations of the study.
And this is the reason why I think that they ought to put this money back into the CPC and come forward with another project that sits there and lays out, a more orderly thing. This is what's driving me crazy about this. These are all good news things that we ought to be putting forward in a more orderly way.
Mhm.
Can I suggest to the committee that we not vote on this tonight, knowing that that means we won't make the warrant?
Yep.
And I'm sorry, Alana, but I think you deal mostly with CPC.
Yep. No, I'm
But
the
go back and
liaison.
say
Don't be sorry.
that, these are the concerns, and it seems like we're going to vote not to recommend this based on the concerns. Does CPC think we're wrong, or is there something we're missing here?
I think also
That-
we could ask Justin. He might have some idea, like you threw out a number of could be
Yeah,
a few
exactly.
100,000,
I know
but we don't
nothing.
really know. And it may
Correct.
change our thought process if he's like, no, this is never going to be a multi-$100,000 field. It's going to be a $75,000 field, but right now it's useless. Or he might be like, oh no, my thought is that this is going to be a full athletic field and we need it. I don't know.
I
But
think it's important to know how good the study's going to be for too, because if that sets us up on a timeline where if we don't take action by a certain time, then we wasted $20,000 on a study. I think that's
Yeah.
a waste. Too.
yes, did he? Okay, so let me just read what he wrote back in that email again, just to refresh. I've attached the feasibility study proposal as stated during the original CPC application. The DPW did not support the original request for irrigation, as the field indicated was never designed to be a natural turf athletic field, and inefficient assumptions of improvements were misguided with the original application. The study will identify long-term improvement processes to provide clear direction that could be utilized for future improvement processes, i.e. grading, top dressing, aggregation, irrigation, etc. I support the change in scope of this to conduct a feasibility study to provide accurate assumptions for the town to efficiently utilize limited funding opportunities for the foreseeable future.
And that's the reason why you sit there and say no to this and say you bring this forward to town meeting voters in a more orderly fashion, which sits there and lays out, not only the cost and impact of the study, but about, to the, that this study would cost $20,000 and it would lay out a series of, options that might be on the range of, a few $100,000, because my guess is that, many people will sit there and say, no, just leave the field the way it is. That's not even worth spending the $20,000 on.
Mhm.
But, to me, that's, I don't mean to, keep focusing on this orderly process, but there's a reason for that.
Mhm.
There's a reason why you do it this way, is so that then you can understand the fuller impact of these actions. I realize it's only $20,000, quote unquote, but it's $20,000, and it's $20,000 that's likely to lead to, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars having to be spent. I think we ought to be able to go to town meeting voters and say, this isn't just about $20,000. This is about $20,000 to figure out how to spend,
Right.
between $150,000 and $300,000 of your money, because then I think a bunch of people are going to say, no, thank you very much.
Okay, so should we table a vote and do some more questions and research and put this back to
I
a
think-
vote?
I think that's what Peter suggested, and I would
Well,
agree with that.
Sorry, why are we tabling it rather than just recommending against? Is it something with the timing of it is better?
Well,
Um,
that's, go ahead, Peter.
So I would do it out of deference to the other committees that I don't like not recommending something the CP just put forward, particularly where we may not fully understand it. So, I mean, I don't know that there's anything different than the summary I gave or other people gave, but I certainly would like to overextend ourselves in seeking an explanation from them that before we vote to not recommend it. So that's my reason for delaying.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I mean, there's no rush for us to take a vote. This whole thing about trying to get in the printed warrant, to me, is a big artificiality that doesn't always serve town meeting voters best. And I think the idea that Peter was putting forward of making sure that we're understanding the impacts of this, that would serve town meeting voters better.
Yeah, I mean, given to me, because Justin wrote that he does support this change in scope for the feasibility study, I would like to go back. I would like to give him another chance to advocate for it, and maybe have some answers on what scope are you thinking this is? Is this a $200,000 scope in the end, or is this, we need some sort of context as to what we're signing up for with regards to this feasibility study, and see what he says. If his answer is, I have literally no idea, well, then we might be like, well, I don't know how we can vote to recommend something. We have no idea what the impact is. So that, Elliot, to me, is why I would defer, because I agree with Peter, the CPC has put this forward. Justin has said he's in favor of it. So I just want to make sure we fully understand and our questions can get answered before we vote on it.
Okay, I'm just wondering in terms of timing, like,
Mhm.
I'm not always clear on the timeline of certain things because I know there have been conversations in the past where it's like, all right, are we gonna approve this? And maybe this is just budget transfers, but like,
Mhm.
there are sometimes things where it's like, hey, are we gonna approve this or not? And we're like, we don't really think this is the best use of money. And then the response is, well, it's already been spent. It's just a formality. So I'm just like, is this already gonna go
Sure.
through or do we have to wait? Like, that's really where the base of my question is coming from.
This definitely has not been spent or put into a pipeline to spend until this is voted on at town meeting,
Okay, good.
is my understanding.
I get it. Okay, thank you.
And then I just have a procedural question that Peter and Ken, you might be able to help with. So right now, our next meeting is scheduled for May 9th, which is our public hearing. Is it,
We
Oh.
don't have one on the 25th?
no, we don't have a meeting on the 25th because we had talked about it. I'm going to be traveling and we thought that we wouldn't need it. However, we have May 2nd and then our public hearing on May 9th. So if we would like
So
to
just,
add a meeting,
So what's your
Just from a
procedural
pers-
question? Yeah.
the procedural
from a
question is,
procedure,
can we vote and to recommend an article right before public hearing?
We can do it
Going
before, we
through.
can do it after.
Oh, okay.
so we definitely have had cases where well, I did it anyway, where we went through the recommendations and I said during the public hearing, we have not yet voted. We are going to go into a regular meeting after this public hearing and make our recommendation at that point. You're welcome to stay to hear that.
Okay.
But I forget what the article was, but whatever it was, we couldn't get it done or didn't have the information. And so we proceeded that way. But
Okay.
I think this is also an insignificant enough article that I'd be comfortable, doing that, as one member of the committee.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
Okay. The only
in
other
this
thing
case.
to consider is that with regards to the reserve fund transfers that I had said, we are also going to put those on May 9th because Lori was concerned about letting them go until May 23rd. So my
There's
question
not gonna be
is,
anybody at our public hearing, so it's all about how fast you can read. I'm sorry,
That's not-
but
I just want to be very clear that do we feel the need to have an additional meeting on May 2nd to go over this article and the reserve fund transfers and have the 9th basically just be our public hearing, or should we just put everything on the 9th?
I think we could do it all on the 9th, but
Okay.
I certainly, we could target a 1-hour meeting on May 2nd and just not go till 10 o'clock.
Right.
No.
We're done with this 10 o'clock baloney.
I'm in favor of May
It's
9th.
budget season.
You're in favor of just doing it all May 9th.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we can get it all
We
knocked out.
can do it all May 9th. Okay. Great. All right.
So just from a procedural perspective,
Mhm.
so, oops. So our normal meeting night is the 25th.
Yes.
And if we are not going to have one on the 25th, then you may want to post something on the site saying no meeting on the 25th, just so, because we typically have the 2nd and the 4th. So even though
Okay.
we don't have it posted, just as a courtesy, for somebody looking it on, just say no, just to ask the website to be updated to put no meeting on the 25th.
Okay. We can do that. All right, can we quickly vote in some minutes and then get out of here?
Well, except you need to talk about the golf course.
Do you think that's necessary? I mean, I don't think there's
I don't know that
anything.
we need to discuss it in
Okay.
in detail and everything, but I think it's worth notifying the rest of the committee about the, pretty major issue.
Sure. So at the CPC meeting, this has been a known issue, but the CPC funding that was spent to purchase the land that the golf course is on also purchased the clubhouse. And this is not a proper use of CPC funds, the clubhouse particularly, the golf course fine, clubhouse not. We've known this for a while. It hasn't been rectified, and the speaker that came in pointed out that they looked up the original petition or the original article in which we purchased the golf course and clubhouse, and the town put in $500,000 toward that purchase, whereas CPC put in $1 million. So
Wow.
what we now need to do is separate the clubhouse from the rest of the golf course. The golf course needs to be put into a conservation trust, and the Sudbury Valley trustees, I believe, is going to be the holder of that conservation trust. And the clubhouse needs to be separated. It's all town land. It all stays town land, but it needs to be divided in that way because the clubhouse portion of it should not have been purchased with CPC funds. The good news is, because the town put in that $500,000 initially, we may be okay monetarily speaking. What we have to do is get a appraisal of the building, and should it be $500,000 or less, no money has to go anywhere. We're fine. We just need to do the paperwork that separates it.
Well, except that, the $500,000, the value of the overall property is higher than it was when we purchased it. And so if we're separating it out, are we separating it out based on the value then or based on the value now? And that, there's a bunch of questions like that. I think, there's also an opportunity for, for the town to look at, what the impact of putting this, this whole property in a conservation trust is going to, how much of this property put in a conservation trust. So.
I believe the
And then-
entirety of the golf course, like, has to go into, if CPC money was used for it, it has to be,
Except
it
CPC.
cannot
except
be
town
used for
money,
other purposes.
right, except town money is also, in there, so. I mean, there's
Yeah,
a lot.
it's
it-
messy. Yeah,
It's a big mess, and, it needs to be rectified, and apparently now, that's gonna happen, so.
yes. Hopefully we will finally get this fixed.
Okay, I just want to raise the issue, and I'm no lawyer, can't speak to this. I would not want our only guidance to be from people who, frankly, to my mind, advocate for a very limited, nature only, use of CPC funds. As this is what they advocate for, and this association of CPC committees, I suspect, is like this. And well, I don't suspect, I have no basis for that comment, but I want to make sure that we also, would get legal advice from someone who is not advocating for a very restrictive use of CPC money.
Yeah,
And the
my,
second question
I'm-
would just be,
okay.
you know, who's going to make us fix this? What's the difference?
Well,
If it's
yeah,
only
it
that
has,
the C-
you know, the CPC money was not, you know, not used correctly. And
so
so,
sue me.
Well, that
well,
I mean,
would be the concern, or the loss of
well,
CPC funding from the state or whatnot.
I don't know what the, I don't know what the
Well,
Yeah, I
impact
don't
is.
know
mean-
the actual, like, right.
I,
Right.
I would hope,
fine.
Peter, you're right. We ought to take a look and understand what, you know, what our options are. And I think that's the
Yeah.
reason why I didn't want to sit here and discuss this, you know, in detail tonight, because frankly, I don't think we know enough to be able to do that. But
Right.
I did want it to be brought before the committee, because, you know, this whole thing was you know, was a significant issue, and it's going to take a lot.
Yeah.
I personally think that we need to have somebody who's going to look at the whole problem and say, okay, here's how you got into it. Here's how you get out of it. And here are the options for getting out of it. And, you know, and let the town know. I don't know that
So-
there's just
Sorry,
one
I
way
just
to
want to
do
jump
that.
in.
Yep.
Is our next meeting is on May 9th.
Yes.
Like, I have to go soon, so.
Okay.
The next meeting is on the 9th.
Yes. We are
Okay.
we're gonna have a meeting on the 9th, and we are gonna do what we need to do. Get it
Thanks.
done. No problem. All right. Should we go 4 minutes, or should we just, I hate to push them off. We could probably do this real quick, guys. April 4th is what I pulled up. Want to point out that we realized we're still putting in FY21 numbers in our reserve fund that just got carried over. So we fixed that. That's what's in the reserve fund right now.
You just go up a little higher.
Mhm.
So I move that we approve the minutes of April 4th.
Okay, do we have a second?
I will second.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call. Peter,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yep.
Katie,
Yes.
Yep.
Elliot is a yes, I'm a yes.
Yep.
Awesome. And we have minutes from, and this was a good one. That was a long meeting. 3:28. Here you go. These have been emailed out as well. Do we have a motion on these?
Question.
Yep.
What is it? I might be just not remembering something.
Mhm.
On 10, what does it mean that it came from the bleacher funds?
So
I had that in my notes, and I don't remember if I went back on the actual draft control. I think it might state that. Maybe not.
No,
which
so
ones?
there was an earlier draft of the proposed free cash allocation that had more money, I think a full 200,000 going to the bleachers.
Oh, yes, he said he took
Because
this.
this bill came up,
Mhm.
Greg reallocated part of that money to pay for this bill.
So,
why-
right,
The current allocation in the free cash article to the bleachers is only 178,000 something, or
yeah, I'd propose we
177,000
just
or
take that
something.
out.
Yeah, just delete that. Yeah,
Because you say that it's coming from free cash, so.
right.
Okay. So Katie, moving forward, just put the numbers for the voting.
Okay, yeah, good to
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
So I move to approve the minutes of March 28th.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Danielle seconds. Roll call. Peter,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes,
Elliot,
Yep, sorry.
all right, no
Hmm.
problem. All right, and I'm a yes, so that's 6-0.
6-0.
All
So
right,
instead of say roll call, yes, state 6-0, 6 yes, 0
yeah,
no.
you
6-0.
say who made the motion, who seconded, roll call, and then, yeah, 6-0, 6, or whatever it ends up being,
Good,
7-0.
got it.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Really good work. And we'll see you on May 9th.
Thanks, Alana.
Good night.
Right.
All
Thank
right.
you. Have a good
Good night.
night.
Thanks,
Bye,
Alana.
guys.
Yeah. Thanks.